It's holding up pretty good. I went into the game with a banged up shoulder, so I thought I did fine.
I know you played banged up next year too. What's the key to that? To still being, really effective when you're not feeling that good,
Mainly just staying focused. You know what I mean? Getting in there and rehab, and just really getting some extra work so my shoulder can hold up. And I tried some different passes this week, so I thought they felt fine.
You had over 100 rushing yards against Alabama last year. A lot of guys, most guys don't do that. What do you remember about that game, and how much pride did you take in that?
It was a fun game. I mean, before the game, I think Darren McFadden told me, do what you always do. So I went out there, I went ahead and did what I always did, and the line blocked great, against Alabama last year. So we had a lot of old guys last year that knew what was going on, so they held them up pretty good.
I guess I forgot, was Darren at the game last year?
Yes, sir, he was.
Did you get a chance to talk to him last week when he was here, and if so, what did he tell you?
Yes, sir. Basically just told me the same thing. Just keep going. Just whatever happens, do what you do. You know what I mean? So that's really what he told me. He didn't say much this time, just a few words. Really.
Okay, what's the message from Coach Traylor and Coach Morris and trying to keep you guys together heading into facing Alabama in spite of all the losses?
Really just everybody stick together, just go to war, you know what I mean? So, like I said, we got another away game, so all we got to do is just pack our lunch, you know what I mean?
You guys believe that you can go there and topple number one?
Yes, sir. I mean, we got to play the best game we ever played, you know what I mean? So we got to execute. If we want to win, we got to execute. So that's what we're going to be able to do.
You think you can have another 100-yard game on these guys? They're starting some freshmen. I'm sure they're good, but they're freshmen.
They're very young. I mean, if we get the right blocks and stuff right there and the holes there, I'll hit it. So we'll see how it sums up after the game.
As a running back, when you have offensive line changes, I mean, does that change maybe how you have to figure out which hole you're hitting or how you're doing?
I mean, you may think it changes, but it doesn't change at all. I still have the same concept, the same play, you know what I mean? So it's just a different guy in that spot. So it's probably he might not be experienced as the first guy. So you just gotta watch. Oh, he's over there. He's not experienced. Just that guy that goes first. So you know what I mean? I'll still do the same concepts and run the ball the same.
Ty's been one of the most consistent guys on that line this year. So what do you see out of him this season?
Say that again?
Ty Clary's one of the few guys actually on that line all year. What do you see out of him this year?
Oh man, he's done great. Just being a leader on the line, getting those guys straight and understanding pass blocks and stunts like that in different fronts. So he's been great to the offense.
Hello. It's our Wednesday edition here on OTH, here on KDSJ 479, coming to you each and every day, 1 to 2 p.m. And we lay here audio from junior running back sensation Rakeem Boyd coming into today's show as we had made player availability last night with a couple of guys. Much more audio. You'll hear from sophomore Buster Brown, Monteric Brown. You'll hear also from junior center Ty Clary and senior linebacker Dijon Scooter Harris. You'll hear all of their interviews. And we got a real big show coming in, but I want to real quick give a shout out to our sponsors that make this possible. Lindsay and Associates with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. Locomotion, located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting. For anything residential, commercial, I mean, if you want it to look good, contact Corey Beck and you won't be disappointed. Our other sponsor, one I'm real fond of, KDK's Chicken. It's located at 989 Razorback Road. Go down and see Keith and Kathy and get your plate of that love. And like they always say, it's not your mama's. Best chicken and waffles in the South. But I want to come in real quick as I want to bring in my producer and the best in the business, Demetrius Johnson. It's Wednesday, my man. What's up?
Nothing, just trying to get over this hump day, man.
Yeah, we always trying to get over the hump. We got a real big show. I'll get you all set up at 1:15. We'll be joined by Fox Sports Show's Jordan Campbell. We'll be talking a big game in the SEC West. You know we like to always go on the caravans and find out where the matchups are. Well, we got a battle with two Tigers, the Auburn Tigers and the LSU Tigers. We'll get the Auburn side from Jordan, and then following up in between that, the Must Bus had two big-time recruits in, and hopefully we'll bring in much more. We'll see where Coach Musselman and that staff is. We'll be talking with Kevin McPherson of Hallville.net. We'll get that take, and then we always get the second side of every story. We'll be joined by Josh Lemoyne of the LSU Football Truth to get the LSU side of this big ball game coming up this Saturday versus Gus Malzahn and his Auburn Tigers. But I want to go over to Demetrius real quick. Any certain things coming up in the Arkansas game that maybe you'd like to, put out there that you'll be watching, or are there any other things that are storylines that maybe you've seen throughout this season that you'd like to mention out to the fans?
Not really. What I'm looking for this week is the coach's body language. And I'm talking about top to bottom. I really want to see how Coach Craddock goes in, knowing that he's really under pressure and guys are asking for his job right now. So I want to see how he responds to that. I want to see how Coach Morris goes about managing the team throughout this
right.
game. We all know this is a game we're going to lose, but I want to see what he does to even put himself in position to compete, because we're going to play this team for the next forever, and it's not like Chad is going to see them, not going to see them next year. So I want to see what he's doing and what hope he's sending in this year for next year.
Correct. Well, we're going to get things started, and we're going to get this bus gassed up as we got to make our way down to the Plains to catch up with Jordan Campbell of Fox Sports Shows, FM 97.9, to talk a little bit about, this Auburn Tiger football team. We'll recap what they did to Arkansas this past weekend, and then they got that big one. That's all coming up. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
They're big favorites. Nobody's giving you guys much of a chance. I mean, they're big favorites against everybody. It's not just y'all. But how do you approach a game like that when you're a big underdog?
You got to take the underdog mentality with you, but you also can't. You can't be scared going into games like that, because if you are, then you can't win. You still have to be confident. But underdog mentality. No one's on your side. It's an away game. You just got to bring your own energy, and you got to bring your own effort.
Kirby's probably going to have to play there right beside you. How did he do the other day, and how do you think he'll do against him?
I think, I'm confident in Kirby. I'm confident in most of those guys, all those guys. And, Kirby's, I believe in him, and I know he believes in himself. And he's an Arkansas boy, so I know he's going to give it his all out.
Ty, last year's game plan against those guys was pretty effective, 31 points. What worked there, and what do you have to do to be effective against them on Saturday?
Well, to be effective, you just have to execute the game plan really well, and the coaches have come up with a really good game plan, but that was last year. It's behind us, and you just got to, they've got coaches too, so you just got to keep rolling.
How well did Colton Jackson move today?
I think Colton's doing fine right now. He practiced today, and, we'll just see as the week unfolds what happens.
What are some of the things that Coach Morris has said to motivate, encourage you guys in the face of
He, talks a lot about inner strength. He'll show us some inspirational videos every once in a while. And then, he really wants it to come from us and just to, still be motivated, still, be a band of brothers, all work together. And, that's what the team's mindset right now is, keep your head down, keep going, grind, get through it.
What about this game in particular, facing the number one team in the country on the road?
It doesn't matter what your schedule is or what team you are. Every team in the country plays Alabama like it's theirs.
Welcome back. It's our Wednesday edition of OTH here on KDSJ 479, Monday through Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. And we want to get this thing kicked off as there's going to be a real big ball game once again in the SEC. But this time it's going to take place down once again in Death Valley. That's Baton Rouge, where the Auburn Tigers will be taking on the LSU Tigers in the Battle of the Tigers in a Big West matchup. So we thought we'd head to the Plains and catch up with our good buddy, Jordan Campbell of Fox Sports Shows, FM 97.9, to talk a little Tigers. JC, welcome back to OTH, my man.
Always good to be on the hill with you, Pat. How are things going today, boss?
Man, after the way you guys blew in here on Saturday and left out with a 41-point outburst, I was able to make it. Don't know how, the Arkansas program's feeling. They still feel those effects, but I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right, brother. I tweeted out on Saturday just a reminder to people that Chad Morris was 14-22 before Arkansas hired him away from SMU. And coming into the season, I said, Chad Morris might be on the hot seat this season. And a lot of people said, no way. He could lose every game and he won't be on the hot seat. I'm starting to feel very confident in my prediction that he could be on the hot seat.
Absolutely. Gus Malzahn came into his home state, got that big win. Turns his attention now to a big matchup versus a team with a very established quarterback, a Heisman candidate at that spot in Joe Burrow. Talk about this upcoming ball game. And offensively, when you look at some of the things that Gus and that staff were able to do here versus Arkansas, what are some of the things that when you look at this game defensively versus the LSU defense that they might be able to get done?
Well, I sort of said it last week. Auburn is a team that's offensive success is predicated off of the run. If they can move the football on the ground, it opens things up for them to move the football through the air. When you think about some of the best offenses that Gus Malzahn has had outside of the Cam Newton year, because he was a once-in-a-generation quarterback, when they made it to the national championship, I think in 2013, Nick Marshall wasn't a dynamic passer of the football. They moved the ball on the ground and were able to work off of that, hit the passes that they needed to hit, because the defenses that they were facing off against had to respect the fact that Auburn can run the football. If they want to have success against LSU this week, they're going to have success on the ground. And when you take a look at the Arkansas matchup, I said it could be a little bit of a tune-up. Auburn could find some things out about themselves because they didn't have a Boobie Whitlow. And you saw a number of different guys get some touches and get some big-time yards. Cam Martin led the way, but, of course, that 84-yard touchdown or that 84-yard run that he had, or I think he had 84 total, but he had a big run in there at one point as well, and that sort of pushed him to the front of the line. But DJ Williams looked good. Cam Martin looked pretty good. Shivers, Malik Miller didn't really get a whole lot of touches. But you did find a few things out in a time that really came perfectly where Auburn needed to find that guy to step up in place of Boobie Whitlow. If Auburn cannot find established success on the ground against LSU, this will not be that close of a ball game, because I'll tell you, Pat, LSU has the most dynamic offense in the SEC. No, they don't have the receiving talent that Alabama does, but look at what Joe Burrow's doing, and he's really got one receiver that he's focusing in on. If he had Alabama's receivers, this guy would have 3,500 yards on it.
Right.
It's going to be a tough task. It really is. But offensively, for Auburn to have success, they're going to have to move the ball on the ground and control the clock. Keep the ball out of Joe Burrow and that LSU offense's hands. And then you've got a shot. They're the underdogs going into it, as they should be. But if you can control the tempo, keep the ball in your possession, things as the game goes along are going to be in your favor.
When you look at the quarterback spot, I thought Nix did an outstanding job, not only passing the ball on third down, but there were key points in the game on Saturday where he would extend plays with his legs and get the first downs, and therefore extending the change and keeping drives going. How important will that be in this game on Saturday? That Nix does have to, he's going to have to use his legs every now and again to make a few plays.
Well, it's going to be imperative. Again, when you go back and look at Gus Malzahn offenses in the past that have had the most success, you had a quarterback who could use his legs when things broke down. Cam Newton, Nick Marshall. Jarrett Stidham wasn't as much of that, but not last year as much as it was 2 years ago. Stidham did a really good job at opportune times when there was nothing there, picking up 8 yards, 9 yards when you absolutely had to have that yardage. And that's what sort of led to the success Auburn had a couple seasons ago in the quote-unquote miracle season that ended, of course, in the SEC championship game lost to Georgia. So when you take a look at this Auburn offense, if they want to have success, obviously they've got to move the ball on the ground with the backs. But you do have to have a guy like Bo Nix to be able to get out of situations, to extend plays. The one negative that you worry about with Bo Nix is that he is a freshman, and at times he does tend to want to rely on his legs too much. So he may get away from the first tackle, but instead of getting that read back downfield and making a throw or realizing there's nothing here, let me throw it away, you might see him run backwards 5-10 yards, still trying to extend the play too much when he should have already thrown it away. And look, LSU's defense is not the same defense that we've seen from them in the past. That's not to say it's a bad defense, okay? I'm not trying to say LSU has a bad defense. They've got guys that can get pressure on you. They've had some injuries, and some of those guys are working their way back. But you've got to make quick decisions if you're Bo Nix. If your reads aren't there and you can't step up in the pocket and continue to keep the pocket working to allow guys to get open, or you can't step up in the pocket, oh, nobody's here, it's time for me to take off, Bo Nix has to be able to throw that ball away. And that's sort of the question mark for me. We've seen him do some of both at times. We've seen him look really good when the pocket breaks down, and we've seen him look like a freshman when the pocket breaks down. Which Bo Nix are you going to see is the question.
Good point. Talking with Jordan Campbell of Fox Sports Shoals, FM 97.9, covering the Auburn Tigers for us here on OTH each and every week. I want to flip over to the defensive side of the ball because I think the matchup that I'm going to be watching real close is that front. The three defensive studs that you guys have down there in Davidson, Brown, and Nick Coe. I mean, they were able to get a three-man, quite a bit of pressure rushing three on Arkansas this past weekend. How important is it that that front seven of Auburn really tries to disrupt Burrow on Saturday?
Oh, it's imperative, man. We've talked about it before. The front seven of Auburn's defense is the strength of the team, not just the strength of the defense. It's the entire strength of the team. If you can put pressure on Burrow and get him in uncomfortable situations, you have enough faith in your secondary to stick with a guy like Jefferson, maybe bump him off of his route at the line of scrimmage, make things uncomfortable for him, and then you never know. Maybe you force a turnover. Maybe there's that split second that you need for Derek Brown to get his hands on Burrow. If that front seven cannot get pressure and Burrow is allowed to sit in the pocket or make one step up in the pocket and find his targets, Auburn will lose this football game. There's no doubt about it in my mind. Getting pressure on Burrow and disrupting the passing game of the LSU Tigers is the number one goal of Kevin Steele in this defense this week. Look, LSU runs the ball well enough, okay? But we know they are a passing offense. A lot of the best teams in the SEC this year are essentially Big 12 teams. They're going to air it out 40 times a game. And so if they can't get pressure on Burrow, if he's allowed to sit in the pocket, Auburn will lose this game. I think Coe, Davidson, Brown, if those guys can't get back there, it's going to be a long day for the Auburn Tigers.
When you look at this upcoming ball game, Jordan, and you compare the gauntlet of a schedule that you guys have had to play, you've had an Oregon, you've had A&M, you've had a Florida. How much of that in those tough ball games do you feel has maybe helped prepare this Auburn football team for going in what is considered one of the toughest places to play in all the SEC, that being Baton Rouge and Death Valley? How much of an advantage can they really lean on from games that they've already played with so much manning, being a neutral site or on the road, with that being Oregon and Florida?
Well, here's what I'll say, Pat. Can you really prepare for Death Valley? Can you really prepare for Death Valley? In my opinion, no. I mean, outside of playing Alabama in Tuscaloosa, game one of the season, there's not many environments that you're going to go into. Florida was a good test. Don't get me wrong. Florida was a fantastic test, but Florida does not have the offense that LSU does. They've got a way better defense, but they don't have the offense that LSU does. Oregon is a good football team. They just beat Washington this past weekend. Oregon's probably going to win the Pac-12. They're a good football team, but all in all, they are nowhere close to what LSU is. And so I think it helps that you faced off against some really good competition. I think it helps that you've seen a really good defense in Florida, that you've seen a pretty dynamic offense in Oregon. But overall, this is Auburn's toughest task on the schedule, and I think it might be their toughest task all season long. That's not to discredit Alabama. Alabama's great. But Alabama's defense has had so many injuries, and they've had so many young guys that have been forced into roles that they weren't ready for, that you take a look at what Alabama has done defensively this year, and I think most people who know college football would say that's the most acceptable that they've ever been to actually giving up points and losing a ball game. It's been in the past that you've had to have the world's best offense to beat Alabama because their defense has just been so – it's not that way this year. LSU's offense is so dynamic that they're going to score points in a hurry. Their defense is good enough And again, you're going into Baton Rouge to play a college football game. Yes, it's great they played some good games early in the season to get some tough competition, but that does not mean that they are ready, especially with a freshman quarterback in your second and third string running backs in Death Valley.
Right.
I mean, to me, it's hard to prepare for that until you actually get there. And I'm hoping that Gus Malzahn is trying to tell Bo Nix this week, hey, buddy, don't let the moment get too big. They're still Tigers. They put on their pads as well as you do. So we'll have to see there.
Josh, how's the team health-wise going in? Jordan, I should say, how's the team health-wise going into this ball game? I know it, from my vantage point at the game at the stadium, didn't look like a lot of injuries or nicked up Auburn Tigers. But if the reports come out, I know Gus really doesn't like to talk about injuries, but health-wise, is this a pretty healthy ball club heading into Death Valley?
Yeah, for the most part. Again, some of the same guys that were out last week are going to be out for quite some time. So Austin Troxell tore his ACL. He's had a few ACL tears during his career at Auburn, so he's going to be out for the rest of the season. We still don't know about Mark Anthony Richards. He's sort of out for an undisclosed amount of time. He had some surgery on his right leg earlier in the season. Jatarvius Whitlow still not going to be back. It looks like he'll be back about mid-November. Shedrick Jackson actually played against Arkansas. He's still on the injury report, and it's unclear if he's going to play against LSU on Saturday. But for the most part, Auburn is healthy. They don't have any guys outside of Boobie Whitlow, any key guys that are injured and not going to go, at least that is being reported right now. So you've got Bo Nix, you've got, Seth Williams on offense, you've got your starting offensive line for the most part, you've got all the guys on defense. This is a pretty healthy Auburn club. They've been pretty fortunate through the season so far.
We've got about a minute and a half. I want you to give me your offensive player, defensive player, and the final score in this big battle of the Tigers in the SEC West, the LSU Tigers versus the Auburn Tigers. What you got?
Well, I think when you take a look at Auburn, the offensive player is, and I'm going to cheat a little bit here, Pat. I don't think it's one guy. I think it's the running back group, whether that be Cam Morton or Harold Joyner or DJ Williams, Sean Shivers. I think it's the running back group. I think that if they have a big night, and of course that is all predicated on how well the offensive line can block and open up holes, but I think the running back group, you're going to be looking at those guys. If they have a big night, Auburn has a really good shot to win this ball game. Defensively, I'm going to cheat again. I think it's that defensive line. Probably, we know what Derek Brown is going to do. He's going to get pressure. He's going to get his hands on Burrow. But I will say Marlon Davidson has sort of played second fiddle to Derek Brown this year. I want to see him have a big game. I want to see him get some pressure. If you can disrupt what they want to do in the passing game, not to say that LSU can't run the football, because they absolutely can, but you're not as worried about LSU's running game, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Tyrion Davis-Price. You're not as worried about those guys as you have in the past with a Leonard Fournette or a Darius Guy. So I think that for Auburn's defense, it's that front line. Marlon Davidson is the guy I'm going to key on, and for the offense, it's the running back group.
Well, my man, always love having you on. I know it just keeps getting bigger for you guys, as you guys, I believe, will be hosting the Ole Miss Rebels next week, and we'll probably talk about that one as well. But for now, Jordan, thanks for taking time out here on OTH, my man.
Absolutely, guys. I'm going to go LSU 42-35 in this one.
All right. You have a good one, my man.
You too, brother.
That was Jordan Campbell, Fox Sports South Shoals and FM 97.9, giving us the 411 on the Auburn Tigers as they'll be traveling to Baton Rouge down in Death Valley to take on the number 2 ranked LSU Tigers and Joe Burrow. I mean, it's going to be a big-time matchup. But
I think that was interesting, though, before we go to break, man. I thought that was interesting. The score that he gave, I believe he said, 45 to 30 something?
Yeah.
No, that's unheard of.
42-35.
That's unheard of for LSU and Auburn. When you think of those schools and you think just past history and how those games usually go, those are big defensive games. And that just really shows you how much the SEC is really transforming and changing into an elite offensive skill game. You have to be able to score points in the SEC. And it used to be, you have to be able to stop people from scoring points. But now, you see that you have to have a high-power offense.
Well, we're going to step away and get us a quick break. I mean, we talk about elite, and I want to make a piggyback off that. Arkansas hosted some elite basketball prospects from the natural state with Moses Moody and KK Robinson. And we're getting ready to catch up with Kevin McPherson up next, and he's going to give us the update and just how the Must Bus and that Razorback Roundup is shaping up to this point. But we caught up with sophomore sensation cornerback Monteric Buster Brown. We'll let you hear what he has to say, and then we'll be back. All that's coming up. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Back in a bit.
You're young guys, you got some more years left. Well, first, how important is it that you guys, have a strong finish to this season, maybe get an SEC win or two, and take care of business down the stretch?
Yeah, we always trying to take care of business. I mean, we ain't gonna just lay down. I mean, we gonna give it each game our all, and we gonna prepare well each and every week.
That's what Game and Hicks got asked this on Saturday. They're confident Arkansas can, because Arkansas's had some really good teams in the past. Are you guys confident that Arkansas can get Arkansas back to be on, an upper level SEC team? And if so, what do you think that's going to take?
It's going to take everybody to buy in. I mean, we always trying to be great. I mean, we not listen to the outside media, so outside noise. We just preparing well each and every day.
Do you think you guys can get Arkansas back up and down?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Bowl games
Yes, sir. That's the mission.
How did you think Data and the other guys that came in for y'all in that past game did?
They did great. I mean, I work with them guys every day, working on technique, fundamentals every day. The guys doing great, and they're going to continue to do great.
Does anything stand out to you about Mac Jones, just watching what little you have seen of him?
I mean, he can do anything what Tua can do. I mean, he can throw the ball, run the ball, so we just preparing for him like any other quarterback.
When things were going well defensively, I guess in the middle part of the game on Saturday, what specifically was it in your
stopping the run. I mean, stopping the run and then stopping the pass.
At the end there, where the game kind of broke, you guys just kind of wore down physically, or just having to be on the field a lot? You got put in some bad positions with the fake punt and turnover, and you guys turned them back a lot at times before the end. What do you think you got at the end?
I mean, we got a lot of plays on the field. We get fatigued, but we just keep it moving and keep playing.
You guys have given up a lot of third and longs this year, especially lately. I mean, how difficult is it to try to get off the field on third down? Has that been disappointing to not be able to do that?
It's very frustrating. I mean, we do what we got to do, but I mean, we just do what we try to do. I mean, we try to get them off the field.
How would you assess your play this season through 7 games?
I'm not satisfied. I'm not where I want to be. I'm still working on my craft every day and keep working. I'm grinding every day to get better, get 1% better each day.
Anything specific that you're wanting to hone in on?
Welcome back to our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. And real quick, before we go on to one of our featured guests, a guy that I'm pretty sure everybody in the state of Arkansas wants to hear from about this time of year, with that being Kevin McPherson of Hogville.net. Want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Lindsay & Associates, Locomotion, Corey Beck's Custom Painting, and KDK's Chicken. Go down and get some of that KDK. Like I said, it's not your mama's. Best chicken and waffles in the South. But now on to our featured guests. Arkansas hosted 2 major basketball prospects here in Fayetteville this past weekend. So you want to hear about it? We do too. So we're going to head down and catch up with Hogville.net's Kevin McPherson. Kev, welcome back to OTH, my brother.
Man, it's always good to be with you, Pat. Good to be on with you.
Let's get off into it. Major recruiting went on this weekend as Eric Musselman and staff were able to host 2 in-state prospects, with that being Moses and KK. Talk about how their visits went, and since you've had a chance to talk to them since they left the campus.
Both of those young men were very impressed. I think they were blown away, both of them and their families. You hear a lot of things said after visits. It went great, but I think it really did go great. I don't think that was just the standard line. I think they both felt it. They really see that pro atmosphere. I think that's a big thing. We know these kids want to play at the next level. Arkansas's never really had a coaching staff, and I'm not knocking any of the previous ones, but they really haven't had a coaching staff that had this level of NBA expertise because of all the years spent in it. And so that's very valuable. And I think it translates and comes across because not only are the coaches, and you get the feedback that they have these very in-depth presentations, and it really feels like a pro experience, but the players, now that they've been in this system for a few months, are starting to kind of carry themselves that way, and they're talking about it and how they see that difference. And so, these kids are not just listening to coaches, they're listening to the current players. So I think this momentum builds for this staff, we're starting to see reasons why Devontae Davis came off the board. I think Moses Moody and Kalen KK Robinson. I think right now Arkansas's in the lead for both of those guys. I think more so for Kalen Robinson. I think he's probably closer to a commitment, even though it may take a couple of 3 weeks. But I think Moody's in that. I think Arkansas is the favorite right now. I think Michigan is right there with Arkansas. That's one of those fluid situations. But I think right now, if he had to make a decision today, I think it would be Arkansas for Moody. No, I don't know that for a fact. This is what I think based on a lot of factors. So, yes, big weekend to have 2 top 100 guards from Central Arkansas, both of them now playing on the East Coast, Pat, and independent schools. But we may see a homecoming, and these 2 guys grew up playing together. Don't discount that. That could be big in tipping Arkansas's favor in both.
Out of all the young men that's made official visits in the high school ranks, you have Keon came in last weekend. Honestly, when you break it down, Kevin, who are the most realistic guys? I believe they're going to have 3 scholarships available in this 20 class. But who are the guys outside of KK and Moses that you might, and the fans want to keep an extra eye on as to being possible, commits to Coach Muss here at Arkansas?
Well, I definitely think the priorities have been the in-state kids. So we know Devontae Davis, there are 4 scholarships. He's committed. That's 1 off the board. So if you think it in terms of 3, I think Moses Moody, KK Robinson are 2 guys that could very well end up Razorbacks. I think Jalen Williams, he's going to take a couple of visits, 1 official visit set for Auburn. The first weekend in November, the 1st through the 3rd, and then in the middle of the month, really in the middle of the early signing period, he's got an official visit scheduled to Texas A&M.
Right.
Now, he's talking about coming to Arkansas, and he's going to do that soon, but he hasn't announced or set a date that we know of. And then, of course, Chris Moore also going to Auburn the same weekend as Jalen Williams. They played together at the Woods Elite this past spring and summer. He's going to Auburn November 1st to the 3rd. He announced today, by the way, Chris Moore, that he's going to drop his final 3. There'll be no surprise there. That's going to be Arkansas, Memphis, and Auburn.
Right.
But we just got to keep an eye on these Arkansas guys. I think after that, Keon Ambrose Hilton, who you mentioned, took his official visit weekend before last. I think Arkansas is in the mix there. He still has a visit coming up to Alabama,
right,
and he'll be done with his visits. But I also would keep an eye on the JUCO ranks. If Arkansas decides they want to get a big guy early and things don't work out, say with Jalen Williams or Chris Moore, there's a couple of JUCO bigs that they're looking at and have been out to see recently, maybe back out to see again soon.
Talking with Kevin McPherson of Hogville.net here on the Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. Covers all Razorback basketball recruiting and just Razorback basketball in general, which, hence, I want to jump into that topic. You were at Bud Walton on Sunday. What was your general take from what you've seen of this 2019-2020 version of the Razorbacks?
Well, I think the first things that jump out at you are what we knew was coming is going to be a team that's going to struggle to rebound the ball and to defend inside, and that's because they're short on numbers and they're short on size. Right. And that's just going to be a fact this season. That's something they're going to have to work through and figure out ways to junk up their man-to-man defense to help each other. They're going to have guards hit that glass hard to get rebounds, and we saw Jimmy Witt do that. So you start talking about the positive takeaways, though. I thought the ball movement and the offensive design, all the screens, double screens, single doubles. You had guys that I thought did a good job of driving into the paint and then kicking out. And so, obviously Isaiah Joe, he's the standard bearer. He's the guy that put up 25 points on 8 of 17, Pat, from 3.
Right.
35 threes taken by this team. So that's going to be a defining character is the 3-point shot, definitely. But guys that are struggling right now, and that I've seen, at least in that game that struggled, Mason Jones and Reggie Chaney, those guys Arkansas is going to have filling into this system and not struggling like they did if Arkansas is going to have any success. So just based on what I saw, if I had to make a prediction today, I'd say it's an 18-win team.
When you look at it, Kevin, a lot took place. There was a very historical event taking place on Sunday with, Coach Nolan Richardson having his name bestowed upon the Bud Walton Arena court floor. With so many recruits that were in attendance, unofficial visits, for Coach Musselman, when you're able to, host an event like that and, bring in a in-state school such as UALR, that's going to be a pretty good team in the Sun Belt. Talk about the type of impact that will have on this program going forward in the future, having had so many kids or potential recruits be in that environment to where they actually got a chance to see history, be made, in the basketball world for Arkansas. How much of an impact do you think that's going to have for the future going forward?
Well, Pat, first of all, Nolan Richardson is Arkansas Razorbacks basketball. And I know Eddie Sutton did a great job before Nolan. He made Arkansas a top 15 program, but Nolan took it to another level. And winning a national championship, playing in 2 title games, going to 3 Final Fours, a couple of more Sweet 16s, another Elite Eight. I mean, this guy was the poster child for Arkansas Razorback basketball. His name being on the court to me tells everybody, if you're going to recruit big at Arkansas, I don't care who the coach is, you've got to embrace and market your past, and you've got to put it out there and say, hey, you know who we are, and we're going to get back there. And I think that was a statement to do that. You saw a lot of former players come back. You saw Mike Anderson come back. You saw what a big deal that was, even for an exhibition game.
Absolutely.
And I think playing an in-state school like Little Rock is part of that, Pat. Even added more to the intrigue. I think Eric Musselman's pushing the right buttons to generate excitement. The next thing's wins and losses.
Right.
This first team, there's some things that are missing. We'll see if Connor Vanover gets cleared. If he does not, and each day goes by, you start to doubt that maybe that's going to happen. But this first team is wins and losses. Yeah, fans are going to be looking at that. But look at the big picture. I think Musselman's doing a great job. But, yes, it's very important to embrace the greatness of Arkansas's past. They did that. Hey, I think there needs to be another ceremony. I think they need to put a statue of Nolan Richardson outside of that.
I totally agree. Demetrius, he said that. But, Kevin, I love having you on, man. Thanks for taking time out. And I'm pretty sure we'll catch up next week with even more of the Must Bust update.
Good to be with you. Good to be with you as always, Pat.
All right. That was Kevin McPherson of Hogville.net giving us the 411 on just how Coach Musselman and that staff are doing on the recruiting trail as they set up the Razorback Roundup for the 2020 class. And I want to continue on with, just like I said, I was talking a little bit about the Nolan situation yesterday, with him having his name bestowed on the floor. And I have to totally agree with Kevin. I think it's going to be really big going forward here for the University of Arkansas for Coach Musselman, because as I've said, to have an African-American man on your floor, I'm an African-American. And, what Nolan stood meant for me, as I'm pretty sure the parents and mothers and fathers of potential recruits, what he stood for with them are going to be something I think is going to be real beneficial. I mean, that's big. That's big for anybody, especially, like I said, no, it's not a racist statement. Been an African-American man and to be able to turn on and watch an Arkansas game and see Nolan Richardson court, it signifies a lot of pride that you'll have. And like I said, I really think it does nothing but help the basketball program going forward. But we caught up with Scooter Harris, senior linebacker. We're going to hear what Scooter has to say, and then we're going to catch up with our good buddy, Josh Lemoyne of the LSU Football Truth. Time to talk his Tiger take versus the Auburn Tigers. All that's coming up. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it. Yeah, I don't know what this is, but this thing, dog.
So that's what I've been saying over the last few years from him.
Is that mostly because of the receivers?
Yeah, most of the receivers. I mean, you can't sleep on their running backs. They still the old traditional Alabama running backs, big, strong, physical. So we're gonna get a bit of both.
Little opportunity though with Mac Jones instead of Tua. What do you see from him?
Without Tua, that's a big difference. Obviously in their passing game. So to me, we feel like we just want to get a lot of pressure in front of Mac Jones' face, make him uncomfortable, get him off the spot. I feel like if we do that, we'll have a chance, just to compete. And you never know at the end what'll happen.
John, what's some of the things that Chief has said to motivate you guys in the face of the way the season is going?
I mean, Chief, he just was telling us about in the past, when he faced, the #1 Alabama teams and when he was at LSU, just try to motivate us. Like he just keep it real, just tell us it's gonna be a dogfight, which I obviously know that with experience, but just to rally the younger guys who don't know what they're about to get themselves into.
What about this quarterback? Tua is not going to be back there.
I mean, obviously Mac Jones is a decent quarterback. He running with the 2 deep and he playing at Alabama, but can't sleep on him. I watched him over the years. He got some experience under his belt. I'm pretty sure they're going to do a good job to get him ready to play against us. So we just got to go out there and execute the game plan.
What do y'all need to do to get this season turned back around? Get some wins on you.
Trust in the process. I mean, obviously, we got a lot of young guys that's playing. They building on experience as we, on the run. Like I said in the past, I've been in their shoes and I know how it feels. And you're not gonna turn it around and overnight. It takes some time. It takes process. I feel like as a freshman, you got to put.
Welcome back to our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, coming to you each and every day here on KDSJ 479 from 1 to 2 p.m. And we stopped the bus. We made it. We made it to where the big battle of the SEC is going to be taking place, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where it's the battle of the Tigers, the Auburn Tigers versus the LSU Tigers. Now, we gave you the Auburn side. We're going to give you the LSU side, and that means, you guessed it, we're bringing in our good buddy Josh Lemoyne of the LSU Football Truth to give us that. Josh, welcome back to the Hill, my man.
I'm glad to be back, man.
Talk about it, Josh. You guys are just now coming off a really easy win, for that matter, there down in Starkville versus the Mississippi State Bulldogs to set up yet another big, meaningful ball game here in the SEC West. Big rivalry, Auburn and LSU. Talk about some of the things, Josh, that you were able to take away from this past weekend versus Mississippi State. And what are some of the things that they can take into this game versus Auburn on Saturday?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that most fans and, let's say people on the program can take away is the national media really wanted to hone in on it. It's just a trap game for LSU. Right. Is Mississippi State a trap game? Can Coach O get them up? And, I'd say yes, that could have been an issue, but I think we talked about this last week. LSU lost to Troy a couple of years ago, and that was embarrassing to Coach O in the program. So once that happened, I said it that day, that week when we lost. Either LSU is going to use that as motivation moving forward and Coach O to never let that happen again, or this program's going to go down and we're going to have to get a new coach. And it went up. It trended in the right direction. Ever since LSU lost to Troy, you've never seen this team ever fall into a trap game. Coach O always has these guys up and ready to play. And I think that week, that loss to Troy a couple years ago is still in these guys' head. That was embarrassing for this program, and that should never happen. So I think in Mississippi State, you've seen LSU a little sloppy there early on. Earlier kickoff, it didn't have that LSU feel to it at night. But once the offense got rolling, you've seen what they could do. Joe did his thing, 4 touchdowns, over 300 yards passing again. The defense played its most complete game, all year, probably. So it looked good all around for LSU. Another solid win. And one of the things I took away is Mississippi State. That game a couple of years ago, it was, we were sweating it out here on the Bayou. LSU in this one, we got embarrassed down there a couple of years back. So, but here we are. I look at Mississippi State's program, and they really haven't been trending in the right direction. So that's another thing I took away is I like when all teams in the SEC are playing at a high level. So. But look, LSU won pretty. I wouldn't say easy, but it's an SEC win, and we'll take it.
When you look at this LSU offense versus the Auburn defense, quite obvious they have those studs up front in Cole, Davidson, and Greg Brown. In your opinion, how important is that LSU tries to establish a running game, Josh? Because so far it's been about the passing game. How important is it that they try to get something going on the ground this Saturday?
Yeah, it's like the same thing happened in Florida. A lot of people said LSU wouldn't be able to run the ball in Florida, and we ran the ball all over Florida. So I think it's the same concept. I do think Auburn, and this is including Alabama's front seven. I think Auburn has the best front seven in college football. I mean, when you look at it as far as NFL talent, how they're going to play week to week. You got 18, 19-year-old kids, but I think if you look at across the board, man, they are talented up front, especially the front four are talented. So it's important for LSU to at least establish some type of run to keep it honest, because we know with this spread RPO concept, when you got to respect the run, respect the QB run, that's what makes the RPO move and go. So if you don't respect it, then at the end of the day, they can drop back in coverage. But it's definitely going to be tough for LSU to establish a run. But I think they'll get it going. LSU's offensive line has really taken a step forward. They're going to have all their guys back this week, so you're going to have you're going to have your left tackle, your right tackle. Everybody's in. Everybody's healthy. So I expect LSU to be able to run the football. I don't expect them to gash them. I don't expect them 200 plus yards or anything, but I think they should be able to do enough to keep them honest.
I know watching the post-game press conference from Coach O on Saturday, wasn't too pleased with the way the defense played. Didn't feel like it played to the standard of LSU football. And we all know Coach O having the defensive line and defensive background that he has. You knew that was going to be something that really he was going to point out. Talk about the LSU defense versus this freshman and Bo Nix coming up. What can they do to disrupt him? Because we saw 2 weeks ago at Florida, he was a little susceptible. But let's get off into that. And what can they do to create some discomfort for this young man?
Yeah, look, I went ahead and watched that Florida game a couple times just to kind of see what Florida did. And, they kind of he's a true freshman, and like you mentioned that Florida was able to rattle him. What Florida did, they hit him with some exotic blitzes that he didn't see at Hoover and there in high school. And they hit him with some exotic looks and some coverage drops.
Right.
Look, I think Coach Aranda does the same. Going to do kind of the same type thing. I expect LSU to confuse him and do some exotic looking things to him early on throughout the game, just to confuse him. Not saying LSU's going to bring the house, not saying LSU's going to drop back in full coverage. I expect to give him some odd looks that he just hasn't seen yet, that a true freshman just won't see until maybe, his junior year. That's a different thing. He's seen it all by then. But, Coach Aranda, he can dial it up. So, and LSU has the athletes to be able to do it. So, expect the Clavion Chase on to be dropping back in coverage randomly and, sending the safety on the blitz and sending the corner blitz. They're going to hit him with everything because, look, we know if LSU can beat Auburn, it sets up for one of the biggest games in college football in quite a while.
Well, we've got about 2 minutes left. Josh, I want you to feature me your offensive player, your defensive player, and the final score in the Battle of the Tigers, Auburn versus LSU.
Yeah, look, I think offensive side, it's got to be Joe Burrow. I think that this is going to be one of them games. He had the big pass against Auburn last year that ended up winning the game for us, getting us there and setting it up. I think this is the game where Joe kind of takes another one of them Heisman steps. I think the offensive player of the game, to me, it has to be Joe Burrow. He has to be able to make those throws against a really good front seven. He's going to have to step up in the pocket, and there's going to be pressure on him. But he's proven it week in and week out this year that he can do that. On the defensive side of the ball, I think it's going to be more of like a Jacob Phillips or a Jacoby Stevens. I think Auburn's going to try to run the football. That's what they do. I like Nix. He's a good quarterback. He's going to be extremely talented. He's going to, and by the time he's a junior or so, it's all going to work out for him. But come Saturday in Baton Rouge, I think they're going to have to run the football to beat this LSU team. And I think you look at Stevens, you look at a guy like Jacob Phillips at linebacker. That's the guys I'm looking at that should have the big games. As far as the score goes, I think LSU wins this something like a 38-14 game, 38-21. I haven't really thought about it too deep, but I think LSU can score enough on this team, kind of like they did to Florida, maybe score a few late.
Right.
I just don't think Bo Nix and Auburn has enough offense to keep up with LSU. I think at the end of the day, they get a few points. I just don't think they have the offensive firepower now. Look, when Bo Nix, when he's a junior, I think we're having a completely different conversation. He's a very talented young man. It takes time to evolve.
All right, Josh. Well, man, thanks for taking time out here. I'm pretty sure you have an off week. And then, like I said, if they take care of business, and then you and I will be talking here really quickly about what I consider one of the biggest games ever in the SEC as one versus two. But for now, thanks for taking time out here on OTH, my man.
Anytime, man. Appreciate it.
All right. That was Josh Lemoyne of the LSU Football Truth, giving us his keys for this upcoming big ball game, big Western matchup, Auburn Tigers versus the LSU Tigers in Death Valley this Saturday, I believe, kickoff 2:30 on the CBS network. And real quick, want to give a thank you to all of our guests, Jordan Campbell, Fox Sports Shoals, FM 97.9 for giving us the Auburn side of this big ball game. Kevin McPherson for giving us the Razorback Roundup, just letting us know what the Must Bus is up to as far as Razorback basketball is concerned. And then, as you just heard it, Josh Lemoyne of the LSU Football Truth, he talked the Bayou Bengal Tigers side of things on what Coach O and that staff have planned as the Tigers of Auburn make their way down to Baton Rouge. And for our sponsors, want to give a shout out to all of them. Lindsay and Associates with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also to in Rogers. Locomotion, located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting. If you need it residential, commercial, anything you need painted and you want to look good, contact Corey Beck and you won't be disappointed. And lastly, KDK's Chicken. It's located at 989 Razorback Road. Go down and see Keith and Kathy. And like I always tell you, get your plate of that love. And like they say, it's not your mama's. The best chicken and waffles in the South. For my producer, Demetrius, and myself to you all, it's been our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Catch you guys tomorrow, and let's get it.